girl on fire. I'm not a victim, a girl on fire. I'll stand my ground, girl on fire. I've made a choice, I stand proud. I'm a girl on fire. I'm a mother, a daughter, a sister, a friend. I'm every woman. I have taken up arms and I choose to defend all that I hold dear. Independent and strong, you will not keep me down. You can't break me.
Annette Oxley here for Tac Shack Tactical TV and Gosa Girls on Fire's 16 Days of Action for No Violence Against Women and Children. I'm here with a very glamorous and very pretty Lynn Hill. Welcome, Lynn.
Beauty lies in the eye of the beholder, my dear.
But very, very glamorous. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you for providing the platform to do so.
Great. Tell me, let's start. Who is Lynn Hill? It's a very difficult question to start with usually.
I would say that I was going to speak third person, but I'll go first. One of my poems is called I Am. I am. I am an amazingly resilient woman. I am definitely a creative. I am not my roles, but the significant role of being a daughter and a mother and now a grandmother is integral to who I am. I'm absolutely passionate. I'm passionate about whatever I do. So I do have fire running through my veins, and I am a girl on fire. Definitely one that has lived her truth and tries to walk her talk in the highest of ways. I think that makes me authentically flawed, beautiful, and imperfect. And I celebrate that imperfection. What else is there? Ambitious, definitely a dreamer, but a visionary who has translated a load of her past visions into current realities. And at the age of 56, I'm not stopping. So yeah, I love life. I love animals. I love being kind. And I have the highest respect and honor for humanity. I am because you are. I live by that.
That's quite something awesome. So, not so nice, your history. What happened to you at age 15 and then at age 51 again? And how did it mold you into what you are now?
Yeah, not so nice, but as you say, and my response to how did it mold me, I ask myself on so many days, would I have become who I am today had it not been for my experiences? Pain did craft my character. And so at 15, I was brutally raped by someone who belonged to my church. For a period of about 45 to 60 minutes, I was raped in a locked toilet in someone's house, so it was a stranger's house. Tortured and raped to a point that every hole in my body bled, that I drowned in my own blood, smelt my own blood, slipped in my own blood, and lost consciousness. The police considered it to be one of the most brutal rapes that they had seen. They thought a train had ridden over my face. I was told that I would never be able to bear children, so there was internal injuries. My eyes are still injured, but I'm grateful that I wasn't blinded. And then I was saved from death. So traveled down the tunnel of death. I had a typical near-death experience as a result of losing consciousness and having been bashed and brutalized in the way that I had, lost consciousness, traveled towards the light, had 2 regrets, not saying goodbye to my grandparents or my parents. The only 2 regrets. Touched the other side and then was retracted. And above me stood the hugest angel, and I remember taking this blood-stained hand and reaching and tugging the wing, and for 1 second the wing was stained, and the next second it disappeared. And after I had touched that wing, I regained supernatural strength. And then I fought for my life, literally had the strength, the physical strength, the emotional strength to bargain. This 15-year-old that had been beaten to a pulp then starts to bargain with him and says, I promise not to tell. I promise to wipe up all my blood. And it was just my organic way of getting out of that toilet and realizing then that it was locked. And I ran for my life. There's some other detail in between that where I was then put in a car, locked in a car, and then I realized the car could unlock from the inside. That time there was no central locking. So as this traumatized girl put in this car, and then he went back inside, and I didn't know what was happening. But I knew the avenue, and as he went inside, and at that point I was a sprinter at school, and I sprinted with all of my might and came across an old neighbor and told the old neighbor, who then went to go and capture him, beat him, and then the neighbor, he wanted to charge the neighbor with beating him. We'll get into the justice system a little later. And of course then it went to the police route. I was taken to the police station, and then the district surgeon, and so all due process was followed. I remember getting to the police station and they said, and this speaks to patriarchy, they looked at each other and they said, wow, this is a real rape. And you ask yourself, what constitutes that? Was it because I was beaten to a point of being unrecognizable? Was it the violence that made it real? And there is still today that mystification about what rape is. Yeah, so that was 15, and then 51, drugged on a business trip while in Johannesburg. 8 hours of my life unaccounted for, dumped at in a parking lot at Morningside. The group of females who rescued me took me to Morningside police station. And there the police station said, this woman is drunk. And they said, we've smelt her breath, there's no alcohol on her breath. So I was chased from a police station. And we ask ourselves, why are we the rape capital of the world?
And it definitely is that way.
So in a nutshell, that was the 2 rapes, and then between 15 and 51, violation in between that in terms of just other aspects of my story, emotional abuse, financial abuse, marriage, divorce,
but yet,
single parenting.
But you went and studied and you survived. But it was hard.
It was not easy. But the one decision I made only as that little 15-year-old girl, Lynette, then already was, you could demolish my heart, my body, my soul. It was shattered. The one thing you were not going to demolish was my mind. Without knowing the reclaim process, without any of that. It was just absolutely organic, that you will not control my destiny, that I have too much that has been placed on the inside of me for anyone to take it. And very many years later, I come across Eleanor Roosevelt, who says, nobody hurts, angers, or humiliates you without your consent. So there I was, and I didn't consent. But heck, I took my dreams back. And if we don't do that, we're basically giving the violator lifelong power and control over us, and no violator or violation is worthy of that level of attention.
So as a 15-year-old going through that whole process, did they treat you with respect, the police, your parents, society?
I was very blessed. SAPS was amazing to a point that the sergeant lieutenant who was on duty, or the detective, he was the detective who took on my case, came and checked in on me every single day between the 1st of January and then July was the regional court's hearing. They saw the evidence and they said, there is no way this man can only sit for 10 years. This needs to go to the Supreme Court. When they saw the evidence, there was an additional charge laid, and that was attempted murder. And so it went to the Supreme Court in October. But I was raped on the 1st of January, and for 10 months this person lived in my community. He came out, a free man. He came out on 500 Rand bail. And for 10 months, I lived in total trepidation. I didn't know what diminished me more, if it was the fear or the pain.
That's hard. And you also said when you were in the court the first time, you were alone with him for a while.
I don't even know, how possibly the system. And I guess that in itself, the fact that here I was, there were people outside of the courtroom, there's the man, the accused, I'm standing in my dock, and this person comes over to me. The only person present was the scribe, the court scribe, and of course the screaming was not a dramatization, it was the involuntary voice of a very, very frightened 15-year-old. And then she reprimanded him and he had to go back.
How old was this man? Do you know?
He was approximately 23, 24.
And you were not the first one, or do you know anything? And what happened to him?
When he was, so he was jailed, if one wants to call it that, for 2 days or 3 days before his bail hearing. And I was in heavy sedation for 72 hours. And I remember when I came out of sedation, he came out on that 500 Rand bail. And it was at that point, so coming out of sedation and then hearing, you were allegedly victim number 4. And I think hearing that also just planted within me a will to say, if I were victim number 4 would be his last. And again, I was only 15 and nobody was forcing me to fight for justice. It was a decision that I made as a 15-year-old. And I look back now and I say, wow, Lynn, what a brave little girl you were.
Absolutely.
And yet it was organic.
Came from inside.
It came from inside.
What happened to him? Is he in jail? Is he out of jail? Has justice been done?
So this was the thing about it. When I get told that it goes to the Supreme Court because 10 years is not enough for this, it created within me an expectation and a sense of relief for what I had gone through. That, okay, something good was going to come out of this. And that day when he got 10 years only, for all the hell that I had been put through for that one day. The one day was my testimony and all other testimonies, and the next day was the sentencing. And he got 10 years, of which I am told, and luckily for me, I only discovered it many years later, that he didn't even serve half that sentence.
He's probably gone on to do the same thing over and over again.
I pray not.
Yeah, well, one does, but unfortunately people don't change.
I pray not. And I guess it was a relief to not know, because that was a time in my life when I think I felt a little safe. So the justice system did not serve me. It did not serve me in sentencing. It did not serve me in cross-examination. I was told that I appear to be someone who over-dramatizes. That I kept a journal because it was part of the drama unfolding. That he slapped me a few times across my face. So what?
So what?
So what? And then the evidence was presented in court. And of course, his legal person stood there aghast because they had not been aware of the level of evidence and the photographs and stuff. So the secondary victimization in court, societal judgmentality, societal persecution, girls judging you, which is why, the demystification of rape is something that should be part of an everyday awareness, not of 16 days of action, but freaking 365.25 days of not only awareness, applied awareness. And part of that curriculum, if one wants to call it that, would be to demystify what rape is and what violation is, and that not all violation is violent. We've got a lot of work to do in terms of social rescripting.
Absolutely, and I don't think it's just a South African problem, unfortunately. Although we are
with a capital.
If you look at the rape figures and stuff, that's there. But it happens all over the world, and I don't think a woman gets justice.
Because it's happening within a system which is primarily still patriarchal. Linked to religion, linked to culture, linked to the political landscape, and so systemically we really need the global. One of my advocacy passions is the global redefinition of what true power means. That it is not, power is never meant to be borrowed from vulnerability.
Absolutely.
It is meant to be authentic. It is meant to come from essence, from your values, your principles, and your character, not from gender role identity.
It's been very important for me to listen to you to say you got your inner strength from somewhere. But your parents and your grandparents supported you throughout this.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that was a blessing. Although, as that 15-year-old, never mind how much support you're getting, a child was never wired to process this level of trauma. Well, no one is, but especially a child. So for that year, I because I studied psychology as a result of all of this, I now know it was deflection and repression and denial and all of those defense mechanisms to not deal with, because I wasn't wired to deal with it. And yes, I had to go to therapy because PTSD struck hectically. It was a tsunami 1 year later. But that is where I write and have written an article called From the Graveyard to the Garden of My Soul. Because at 15 and very many years beyond 15, there was just so much repression, suppression, burying, loading something and just saying, okay, let me cover it. And let me rechannel that energy, which was wonderful, again, organic as a 15-year-old. I applied existentialism without knowing the school of that existed in psychology. I tried to find meaning in the pain of if I didn't die when I was supposed to, I had to be living for a reason far greater than my dying. So what was the reason for my pain, and how could I use this for not only my gain but for humanity's gain? And at 16, I guess I ignited my divine purpose as a result of it.
That's absolutely awesome. Any physical harm that's still with you after that traumatic experience?
Yes. My eyes were beaten and bashed shut, and so the muscles of my eyes are damaged.
Okay. Shall we move on to something more pleasant right now? And your book, Butterfly My Soul Has Wings. Why the title, and what is the book about?
Very importantly, the book is not about the rape. The book speaks of universal spiritual principles, of which chapter 2 speaks of forgiveness. And obviously that is the chapter where the rape comes in, because the rape created the context for one of my hugest lessons, which was forgiveness, which happened only 23 years after.
You've forgiven him?
At the age of 38, yes. I forgave him as a result of writing a poem to prepare me to go into Paulsmoor prison to work as part of a multidisciplinary project where I would meet the leaders of the 28s and the 26s.
That's the gangs.
The gangs. I said yes without thinking. And I didn't tell a single soul. And after I said yes, it was, oh my gosh, what have I done? What have I set myself? And then the fear kicked in. And then I was divinely instructed to write a poem. And I wrote the poem called The Rape, which is the introduction to chapter 2 in Butterfly. And as I wrote it with sensory acuity, as if I had been raped and I had just woken up out of sedation. This was 23 years later. So for 23 years, this was the grave. That it was still there. It was buried, but it was still there. And it lived through me, through chronic bladder, womb, and tube infection, to a point that I became immune to oral antibiotics, to a point that Augmentin, in its ultimate dosage, orally would no longer work for me, that I would need to go on a drip and then quickly get back to school. I was an educator at that time. And it was just, oh, let me go on the drip again. Let me just have a biopsy again. And that was my life for 23 years. And then I read the poem. And then I reread the poem. And then I reread and reread. And in that moment, I became an observer and not a participant. And when I realized that this was never about me, this was never about Lynn, this was, in its most objectified sense, the playing out of someone who chose to take his displaced anger out on a vulnerable, 15-year-old. As he bashed and brutalized my head against the tiles and the floor and did everything to reduce me to this pleading piece of pulp, as I say in my poem. It was never about me. He was actually cursing his mother and his sister.
He was not part of a gang, am I correct?
No.
He just...
No, he was a church member.
What are you supposed to trust?
Who do you trust? Yes. And who uses church? How many men use church as a channel to push their agendas? And then, of course, there's the church's response. And within the church, you've got the pro-rapist and the anti-Lynn, and vice versa. Imagine, I thought I went to go and meet God in church every week. Then I'd never have met God at all. And so the flip side of that, the beauty of that, is that teenager realizing that church is only a bloody building, until I got to a point where right now my understanding of it is just so much more enriched. But at that point, and for many years after, it was just a bloody building.
You've just finishing your other book, or you finished it. What is your new book's name, and what's it about?
My new book is called Segments of My Soul More Than Just Poetry, and that's exactly what it is. Over the years, I've had people say, please collate your poetry, because as a speaker, I often use poetry as part of the message. And the time was right to do that, but this particular piece of writing is also the basis for my one-woman show called Ministry of a Muse. So the script is embedded in more than just an anthology, and it's a matter of some blogs, some poetry, but once again, like I do in Butterfly, the reader goes through their own reflective journey. And so it is so much more than just a read. It is a mechanism for liberation and the escalation of consciousness, both of these works.
That's awesome. So you're in psychology, and you're obviously using it in the way you live your life now.
Yes, I think that, and then years of spiritual wisdom, which I think is now pretty embedded. So I have my BA degree in Psych and English, a higher diploma in education, a Bachelor of Honours in Clinical Psych, registered assessor with City and Guilds of London, Thomas International Analyst, and about to step into my PhD candidacy.
What you're going to do your PhD on? Have you decided?
Yes, it's going to be on the resilience, the psychological and spiritual resilience of the African woman.
That's going to be quite some read. I would love to read it when you're finished. Let's go to some of the awards. You've got, when I look at the awards, the question is, you've got so many awards. Which one speaks to you now?
The one that comes to mind, because I remember it, I can't remember, I can't remember the others. I know they're there, but it would be the Woman Appreciating Woman Hall of Fame Award, where 2 years ago I joined about 700 other women since 2016 across the globe as an impactor. And humanitarian, and someone trailblazing and making a difference. So that one has stood out, but I detach myself from them. I don't own these awards because they really don't belong to me. So each time I get one, it would be in honor of the voiceless, in honor of those who didn't live to tell their stories, whose resilience could not be witnessed, in honor of those who have still not told a soul and tried their best to channel their energy in a constructive way, in honor of those who have told and have been judged, in honor of those who have told, have been judged, and most importantly, still persist living their highest purpose and transmuting that pain into power by having found pain's purpose. All of my awards belong to them.
That's awesome. Lastly, if you have a message for the women of the world, what would it be? And you said you might want to do your poem that is your message.
Absolutely. This poem was written 1 year into severe PTSD after the second rape. We know that pain, trauma, it can diminish us. It silences us. It fractures our sense of wholeness to a point that we can lose our identity or lose the dream that has been placed inside of us. And 1 year into PTSD, it was not just the reclaiming. Well, I decided even the day after, out of shock or in shock for 29 days, but in that period, it was, I will not shut up. I will not waste all of these years in terms of what I have become for this to happen to me again. The disconnect was that I was one of the purest women. That when I say I was untouched at 15, I was untouched. I had one kiss to my name, so I mean really. Then at 51, I am without a partner. But for that entire duration that I've been without a partner, I'm pure in the purest sense of my womanhood again. And so it was, I won't only find my voice, I won't only reclaim my voice, I won't only use my voice to voice, but this voice will now be transmuted into a roar. And the poem, Hear Her Roar, is my message to not 16 days of action, but to 365.25 days. Hear her roar. She may have silently screamed when pain became her second name. She may have swallowed rivers of tears, pretending not to drown. She may even have contemplated death when she felt there was no reason to keep on keeping on. But now hear her roar as she shouts this to the world. While pain became my second name, it was my gateway to victory all the same. And the rivers of tears in which I thought I'd drown, well, that's now become my riverbed on which my mermaid treasures can now be found. And as for death, death died its bloody death when my divine purpose became my only breath. And now my roar is the tender, compassionate, inspiring whispers. I feed my brothers and sisters so that their own suffering will not starve them. And now my roar is my voice through which I channel those who have been devoiced by systems and perplexities beyond their own control. And now my roar is the half moon that shines across my face as I smile at the beauty of living a purposeful, triumphant life. And now my roar is the license I choose to give myself, to unconditionally love myself, because self-love now amplifies my presence in this world. And now my roar is my laughter that tumbles from deep within my soul, bouncing between light and love and the realization that I was never broken but always whole. And now my roar is my fulfilled dreams, a self-made oasis birthed in a desert in which I did not ask to be birthed in, get lost in, or get raped in twice. And now my roar is my uncompromised, unapologetic authenticity, And now my role is the true celebration of my precious soul's sacredity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. It was lovely speaking to you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your time, and thank you for joining our cohorts of warriors. You're a warrior, and you're a warrior woman.
Yes,
thank you very
I
much.
am.
Thank you very much.
You will not keep me down, you can't break me. I'm a girl on fire, I'm not a victim. A girl on fire, I'll stand my ground. Girl on fire, I've made a choice, I stand proud. I'm a girl on fire. Countless hours on the range, I am responsibly armed. I am your equal. I've empowered myself, I have practiced and trained. Fear won't control me. With my sisters in arms, we will make ourselves heard. We'll stand together. I'm a girl on fire, I'm not a victim. A girl on fire, I'll stand my ground. Girl on fire, I've made a choice, I stand proud. I'm a girl on fire. We're girls on fire, we're not victims, we're girls on fire. We'll stand our ground, girls on fire. We've made a choice, we stand proud. We're girls on fire.